Naomi, welcome to the Scenic Route Podcast.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, me too.
Yay.
For anyone listening in, you didn't know this unless you know Naomi really well and you know me really well, but I think that's probably not before this podcast. Anyway, we both studied in Ireland. So this
We
is
sure
really
did.
exciting. You studied in Galway, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, Galway girl. I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
actually allowed to say that, but I'm gonna
Oh
keep saying
yeah,
it.
you sure are. You sure are. Yeah. I call myself a rebel, which fits
There you
to
go.
multiple levels. So today, we're gonna talk a bit about what we all need to do, regardless if we're entrepreneurs or not, or if we're in corporate or if we're whatever we do. Um, this is actually kind of like how we use our words and how we can make the best out of the words we use. And I'm super excited to talk to a copywriter about ChatGPT.
Dun dun dun.
Da, da, da. Um, which we talked briefly about it. I talked briefly about it with Rachel K. Albers, where we both admitted that we used ChatGPT at some point. Are there instances where you as a copywriter, Naomi, also use ChatGPT, or you're like ChatGPT free and you can, I don't know, have it as a stamp on your website?
I definitely I've used it once or twice for strategy and things like that, or if I'm really struggling with how to structure an email. But I hear all the time people like training the AI to write in their brand voice. It could be that I am a copywriter, so I don't need to rely on it the same way that, a business owner juggling a lot of other things might
Yes.
need to. But so maybe I just haven't put the time into it, I guess is my point. But I haven't found that I'm able to make it sound like me. I played with it when it first came out, went to see what the
Mhm.
hype is. And like I said, there's still instances where maybe I'll look and see if there's a better way to phrase or structure an email to my list or something like that. But
Mhm.
it's just the very overused AI language is just so recognizable, and it comes up in every single thing I write. And again, I know there's ways to say I don't want to use words like that or words like this, but
Yeah.
I think there's just something about a real copywriter who can connect with you and who can understand you
Yeah.
and understand your audience that will always beat AI. So
What are your
no
telltale
shade to you, no
signs?
shade to people who use it.
No,
I'm not judging.
I mean, I when I person in all the media, I want to personally connect with the people, and they graciously give me the time to read my shit, like Instagram posts or emails mostly. Like I write my own thoughts. Sometimes I use ChatGPT there to be like, hey, I have this idea, but I'm
Mhm.
not really sure. Like my mind needs a bit of a jump start to kind of like structure it or something.
Totally.
Or
Yeah.
I free write and then I'm like, this is what I free wrote. Is there a structure somewhere behind it that I don't see? Like help me. So I like it for that. Or
Mhm.
I'm shameless when I have to write stuff for like for other machines. Like, I mean, for example, I don't know, to get very nitty-gritty, image descriptions, like alt image
Mm.
texts for SEO.
Yes.
It helps me to have a starting point there. And I'm just like,
I mean,
hey,
I even know designers who use that because there are a lot of web designers who are starting to incorporate SEO. I call myself an SEO friendly copywriter because I'm not doing the tracking or, analytics review, anything like that, but I'm incorporating those keywords into
yeah,
my client's copy and the title tags and the metas.
which is
But
crucial
which is
anyway.
crucial. And so many designers are doing that as well. And, making like optimizing their images on their clients' websites, which is huge. So I've seen a lot of designers who use it for that purpose. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's, if there's not something in the budget for that or
And that makes,
the
yeah, I mean,
clients,
it makes content accessible, especially
yeah.
for small
Mhm.
business owners. And anything to make it more accessible, I'd say go for it if it's
Mhm.
that such if it has become a low-hanging fruit or even more of a low-hanging fruit with ChatGPT. But I'm curious, you said
Yeah.
before, like, oh, they're like these telltale signs that this is like made by ChatGPT. What are your like main telltale signs when you go through a copy and you're like, ah, I'm not fooled. This is written by like an AI.
I mean, I think there's like the main ones that we all know. I just did an Instagram post and a blog post about this. Things like, those unleash the blah, 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 and unlock the power of this or that. And it's very indicative of AI, but there's other more subtle things throughout, just like kind of like the vague phrasing, and
Yeah.
feels a little too corporate-y. Because usually I find a lot of the time that when I can spot AI, it's pretty clear that it wasn't edited before it was posted wherever it was posted or
Okay,
published
but yeah,
wherever.
but I mean, I feel that's a rookie mistake, right? I mean, if you let ChatGPT write something, at least you should like edit it.
But I think that's the problem right now is that, and this is where my clients are, kind of learning this too. And they're a little bit different than a lot of the folks who are relying on that because my clients are saying things to me like, you don't use ChatGPT, do you? Like, I don't want to sound like a robot. And so those are people who really
Yeah.
understand the importance of messaging and having a
Yeah.
really clear, consistent brand voice. Whereas the people I think who are mainly using AI and really talking it up and think it is amazing, they have a different, they're usually in different fields. I work with generally creative service-based
Yeah.
businesses, um, a lot of whom work in the digital space. So for other people who maybe aren't in fields like my clients, they see it as perfectly fine because it looks fine from afar, but when you really get in there, you're like, this doesn't really sound like anybody in particular. It
Mhm.
just sounds like it was churned out. So I think that's where it gets tough is because a lot of what is being posted with ChatGPT isn't being edited because it's seen by the
Yeah.
user as like, oh, this is fine. This is exactly
Yeah,
what I
let's
wanted,
just
just
post.
something simple. Yeah. And so um it's getting easier to spot, and there's
Yeah.
just, I can't fully describe it, but there's something kind of like a gut feeling where you're reading it and the little bells go off
Mhm.
and you're like, that is definitely not something that you wrote.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. I just recently read that Google is they're going against like all these pages that have just been like created by AI on the mass, and they're just kind of like downgrading them because it's
Well,
not
because
really useful in that sense.
it's
Like
not original content, I think is the
mm,
point that's being missed a lot is, it's an amalgamation of all of these different pieces of content across the web that it's pulling in to give you the answers
yeah,
that you want, but there's nothing original about it.
yeah, which also asks
And
questions of ownership, right? I mean, it's
right.
from like a I mean, it raises a lot of questions, but ownership is definitely one of them, and copyright infringements, and yeah, so it's
I
really
mean, this is
interesting to
separate,
talk about
oh,
that.
from copy, but even like the photo imaging sites that were coming out with AI,
Yes.
that was the same complaint people had is they're like, this is people's work and people's styles that are being stolen to create free images for people. And it's kind of the same for ChatGPT because obviously there's a ton of content out there,
Yeah.
but it's being taken from somewhere. So it's ownership does really come into play with it. And that's, I think, one of the bigger issues surrounding ChatGPT. So, but yeah, from a copywriter's perspective, that is
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're both, well, I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I assume you're also not like a hidden lawyer. Um,
new.
like, yeah. Oof. But I mean, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I don't want to go into the depths of that, but just be mindful of it is coming from somewhere. It's not just like poof, right? Like it's coming from somewhere, and that somewhere has meant at some point it was created by another human.
Yeah.
There's not really much to wiggle about. Um, so you said, okay, it's very vague. Um, and I think the paraphrase, which I read countless of times, especially in the coaching industry, is the unlock your power thingy. Um,
Yeah.
so vagueness is one thing. So I suppose if we want to write better copy, we have to get more specific, more specific.
Specific to the people that we're talking to, because even if you're working with, you know, people who don't all fall into one single demographic.
Yeah.
You are talking to people who have one big problem they need to solve, and that's what brings them together. Maybe it's not necessarily that they're making this much money and they're 20 years old and they like to buy coffee every day. Maybe it's that they are embarrassed by how their house looks because they don't feel like it's up to whoever's standards. I don't know. And we want to talk to that. And we want to talk to without, being gross and making them feel shitty about it, because that's not, it doesn't
Yeah.
feel authentic. It feels gross. And we don't want to work with people because they feel shamed. That's like a kind of
Yeah.
a crappy way to run a business, in my opinion. But it's getting specific into what that person you're trying to work with, or target with your messaging is feeling, and what they're going through, and what their obstacles to working with you are right now. So specificity is really, really key. And that's, unlock the power of whatever. It's like, what does that even mean at the end of the day? What does it mean? And when you really break it down and make it more granular
Yeah.
and kind of like lose the power words, it can actually make it feel more impactful, because it feels like you're talking to one person. So that's really, really
Yeah.
important, I would say.
So the trick is to write, if you sit down, obviously always kind of like think about what you actually want to say, because I feel sometimes that's so obvious, but I mean, I feel that's often not happening, because I'm reading something like, I'm I'm what is that person trying to tell me? And I know I'm sometimes guilty of this too, because my mind jumps a lot. And then I'm like, this is totally like, it's totally obvious while I'm jumping from this to that. And everyone's like, what's going on? So, um, so I feel like, yeah, having
You
to,
sound like you're on, like, that's a great part of the process, though, not to interrupt you, but I think that's
yeah, yeah,
people need to do more of that. I think a lot of folks who are sitting down and they're in the DIY stage and they're not ready to work with a copywriter, they're like, oh God, I have to make it sound like, someone super professional wrote this. And so they're trying to fit it into these very, very tight parameters of like, this is what it should sound like. And it's like, if you just kind of brain dump for a while and then dig through,
yeah.
that's really what copywriting is you're taking little bits and pieces that have worked and you're putting them together in a new way. It doesn't always have to
Oh.
be so like, I have to follow this exact formula. Sometimes it's just let me brain dump, get
But
all
we
this shit
all
out of my
have those
brain, and then
freebies
find
of like
these.
the copywriting template formulas where you just have to replace the word X by whatever you want to sell.
Which some of those are really, really great. I know a lot of copywriters who have those and they are so helpful. But for people maybe who aren't in a position to buy those or purchase them, I think starting with that kind of brain dumping thing and making that your process, finding those little bits that stick out to you of like, I feel like this would resonate with someone.
Mhm.
Because again, not to knock the templates are amazing. People have so much success with them, but not everybody's in a position to take advantage of them, unfortunately. So allowing yourself to just sort of look onto a page and then pull out what you think is going to work is a great start,
Yeah.
truly.
What I A part of my process is, when I'm really like at the early stages, I I just talk into my phone and then leave, like let Otter or some transcribing
Yeah,
service like run over it, just
that's
because
smart.
I know there is such a huge difference when I talk to when I write.
Mhm.
And I know people resonate more with when I talk. This is why I have a podcast. But like, yeah, I mean, figure out what kind of works for you. But I
Yeah.
mean, I know, like, I mean, I'll soon be in the process of redoing my website. Um, when you're starting with such a big project like your
Mhm.
website, it feels very daunting, and it's kind of like, where to even like start with getting the first kind of words out there, and like
Mhm.
almost kind of like the writer's block. It doesn't probably matter if you want to write a novel or like a web page or an Instagram post. It probably can happen at always, like the scare of the blank page.
Yes.
How you work with that?
I, that's something that I actually talk about on my website. Funny enough, as I talk about like that kind of impending doom of like the blinking cursor, and it feels like it's just taunting you and making you
Yes.
feel bad
It's
about
making fun of
yourself,
you. The blank page is making
making
fun of
fun
you.
of you. So I think finding the research first, but then building the strategy. For me as a copywriter, I'm not just coming in and working off of the mock-ups from a designer. I'm creating the strategy from scratch because it's
Mm.
really hard to design around something when you don't know what you're selling and you don't know where things need to be placed. I just had this amazing project with a wedding invitation designer. And even a couple weeks ago, I worked with a, soon to be travel agent who is starting off with a blog right now. And each of those have to start with strategy. Otherwise, one of them is she's selling products and services. The other one is trying to connect with an audience through a blog. They both have such different strategies, and that's where we start to figure out where the flow comes in. I even think back to my master's dissertation. The first thing that I did is I took those 8 by 11 pages of, printer paper. I wrote down every single chapter down. Then I would plug in my sources. I would plug in main ideas and themes. And it was kind of just filling in the blanks after that.
I did
So
not work like this. What was your master's citations on?
mine was in, what was it on?
Yeah.
Mine was on Fight Club. I talked about Fight Club and the Canterbury Tales a little bit, but Gawain and the Green Knight, and how toxic masculinity has, you can kind of trace it throughout literature and history. And it started sort
Interesting.
of in like the Knights of the Round Table. It was a lot.
Yeah, well,
But
I'm intrigued. Okay. Yes.
it was a lot. It was very interesting. There's a lot of similarities once you
I
dig
feel
into
I
it
want to do an
between
episode
Gawain
of
and
that
Fight
too.
Club.
I want to do an episode of that too. That sounds very intriguing, very, very niche, very nerdy. I'm into it.
Oh yeah, it was very nerdy. It was a long summer of writing. But even my dissertation started with mapping the whole thing out because once the website or the sales page or whatever is fully mapped, you're kind of just filling it in with the copy, which sounds easier
Yeah,
than it is, I think,
I
but it does make it substantially easier. So,
I guess so. And it shows the difference between a pro copywriter and just someone who happens to write copy. Because like what chapter? Like, I mean, yeah, I had to do basic chapter outlines because that was like requested and to hand like in my dissertation. But I'm like, no, I just kind of like, I don't know. I free wrote first and then kind of like, oh, okay, no, this needs to go there and there, like working
wait, now I need
backwards.
to know what your dissertation was on. Can we?
Oh, yeah. I think I even have it here. I can show you.
Oh,
We had to do this ridiculous thing of actually binding it in like a real ass fucking thing.
I have mine too.
I
I
know,
have
is this an
mine.
Irish thing? I'm wondering. So I wrote it on, okay, behold, I pull out all the stops for the title. So it sounds impressive. A comparative visual framing analysis of the Republic of Ireland and the Swiss Confederation, unraveling the complex relationship between tourism, national and cultural identity, and place branding.
I think we should trade. I think
Yeah,
we should trade. Mine was blue, and I also use gold font, by the way. So
that
great
is
minds.
that is hilarious. And I did the whole thing um based on postcards from the
Wow,
19 I think 1910 was the earliest until like 2000s from Switzerland and Ireland that have been
that
sent.
is too cool.
And I kind of like looked at all those and the differences in portraying cultural identity.
Wow, that is very cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
do
gonna
you
have to
want to
trade
send me a
these.
PDF of yours and I'm going to send you a PDF of mine?
Let's do it.
Okay. I mean, yeah, bear with us. We're still here. We're still doing talking copy. But basically, I mean, we we gotta find a process that works for us. And there are different ways on doing it. And we both handed in our shit we had to hand in. So whatever works, you do it.
It's true.
I'm curious, when like you're working, like you're taking on new projects, or what is the thing you wished people would tell you in the briefing? So whenever you're listening in and thinking of like sourcing out your copy to a pro, what are the things people need to have in place before it actually kind of makes sense to work with a copywriter? What should they know? What would you ideally know before you got before you put your pencil to work?
Yeah. So the biggest thing and what I have actually had to unfortunately turn down, working with clients because of is, if you're missing who your audience is, like you don't know who you're talking to, you don't know what their big goals are and what they really need from you. Because some people have these great offers, but they haven't really nailed down
Yeah.
why it's that helpful and why it's a must for people. And in a really competitive industry, like, some of the people I work with, like coaches, like website designers, like people who design wedding invitations, you need to really define what you offer and why it's different from anybody else. So knowing what makes you unique, but having an offer as well. Someone that I turned down working with, lovely, lovely dude. But this was a couple years ago. He just had so much going on his website. He basically had three or four different websites.
Mhm.
And he was just speaking to a lot of different people. He did, financial work, but then he did um, a little bit of coaching as well, wealth management type of stuff, and
Yeah.
products and services that didn't really make sense because they would target people who needed the services, but then they would also target people just starting out in wealth management, even though he didn't want to coach. So it was really, really tough for me to even figure out where I would start with the strategy because he just seemed like he had a lot going on. And I'm not a person who's going to waste someone's time or investment if I don't think I can do a good job based on,
Yeah.
what that client might have at the moment. So, yeah, so again, I had to turn him away just temporarily until he kind of refined his audience and his offer suite a little bit further. But those couple of things are really, really crucial because, I can't read your mind. I wish
Yeah.
I could. Sometimes it would make
Or
it
you don't
easier.
like, I mean,
Um, yeah, so that's like the information that I need to write
yeah.
super informed copy that's going to resonate with the right people and make you money. We want to sell your services in an ethical way, but we want to make it, you know, we want it to help you build a really sustainable
Yeah.
business that brings in the right people. So, yeah.
What in that I'm glad you brought it up, ethical marketing. What does that mean to you? What do you understand by ethical marketing?
And you and I have talked about this at length, but kind of what people nowadays have dubbed like the bro marketing or mean girl marketing. It's just the kind of,
Hate pro
even,
marketing. Yeah.
don't we all?
Called it too much testosterone. Like I can't touch it.
Yes. It's just the kind of marketing really where like we mentioned earlier, where you're using these kind of false pressure tactics or shame and guilt to write kind of, manipulative messaging that just makes
Yeah.
people feel shitty.
Yeah.
And it's what people have come after the beauty industry and the fashion industry for years is it's, profiting off of making people feel like they're not good enough just by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
That
that's
there's an outside solution. Like if
right,
you buy this
right.
coaching program, everything will be solved. You'll unlock your power.
Unlock your power. And it's just like kind of like the dangling of the carrot that
Yes.
you're never going to get.
Mhm.
And I even find myself, falling into it sometimes. It's like the shiny object syndrome. And we all just have to like pull ourselves out of it and be like, we don't need this crap. That's not the way to sell. And there's I think her account is called Why Don't You Say Something, but she's a woman on Instagram who I believe she's a nurse. I hope that I got that right. She actually left the coaching industry to pursue healthcare.
Mhm.
And she talks now about how having been in the coaching industry for such a long time, she's really, seen how toxic and like the kind of
Mhm.
just icky tactics that they use.
Yeah.
Um, And it's just really interesting to see because you'll come across it in their copy, in their
Yeah.
messaging, not just on their website, but in their Instagram and how
Yes.
they're talking directly to the camera. And it just, it really alienates people more than it, makes them feel comfortable with you. So,
Yes.
not a good tactic.
I I have a kind of like an intermezzo, but I want to talk about this more. But you just said like the book, or no, not the book, the Instagram account. Why don't you say something that reminded me of? I just recently read Hey Han by Emily Paulson. I don't know if you know
I
it.
don't know that one.
It's Hey Han is the subtitle is like sales sisterhood supremacy and the other lies behind multi-level marketing. And she has been an MLM marketer like really, really successfully. And she kind of like goes into what happened behind the scenes, like all the culture and how they were like forced to communicate.
Yeah.
Um, and it was really like making you feel ick the whole time. So anyway, if you're listening in and you maybe watched the Lula Rich documentary, that book should be next up on your reading list because it's really, really good. Um, so Intermezzo concluded, going back to the like what you said. Oh, sometimes I realize myself, oh shit, no, I'm reacting because of some of those
Yeah.
pain point marketing triggers. And I mean, same, right? And and that's why like this stuff or all these like pain point marketing and false scarcity and like download timers and all that shit.
Mhm.
I mean, it's based on psychological principles. Like we are wired in a way to react on those, and
Yeah.
that's why they're so successful. Um, so never feel
Yeah.
bad about it because people use it purposely to make you
Well,
feel bad, to get you to do
and
stuff. And you're just
yeah.
being human. That's all you're guilty of. You're being human. Like
Yeah. It's again, it's like the dangling the carrot. And
yes.
there's ways to, address fear and address objections and things like that without making people feel gross about it and like they're doing something wrong or
Yeah.
they're screwing up somehow.
Yeah.
I have a client who, I shared a couple of things about a new client who launched, and I had other clients kind of coming in and just, I really was feeling the love. Just a lot of them flooded my inbox and were, offering a lot of praise
Mhm.
for the work that I've done for them and the messaging we've worked together to create. And one of them mentioned to me, I have a line in her website that says, erratic, misaligned strategies have no place here. And she's a brand consultant, but a lot of people, she said to me, have commented on it, how much they love it, because that is a huge fear. It's a huge objection people have before working with someone like my client, because
Mhm.
they have seen so many misaligned strategies that feel very erratic and feel very like, like they don't make sense.
Yeah.
And they don't fit the brand or the goal or whatever.
Yeah.
And so addressing that up top and being
Yeah.
like, we don't do that here. It's a way to touch on that pain point a little bit without really sticking the knife in and making people feel crappy
Without
about it.
adding shame, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah. So there's ways to do it. But the other way does sell, but it's not always going
that's
to
the
get you
thing.
the
Yeah,
best
that's the thing.
return.
I feel there's more and more of a shift where I
Yeah.
feel more people are becoming aware, or at least like in my bubble, or in our, in your bubble probably too, because probably I have like a similar bubble, where people are like realizing what these certain, I don't know, copy style of copywriting does to them, and
Yeah.
like how they feel at like uneasy when when they read certain copy, or how they're suddenly like, I don't know, etching on their seat, or just how how their body reacts.
Yeah.
They're like, no, fuck this shit, not here for it. So do you
And I
see
think
that
that's
too? Do you see that too, or is it just my wishful thinking?
no, I do see it a lot more. And I see a lot of marketers in the space that I'm in on Instagram specifically, kind of calling out that very like predatory behavior, especially as it pertains to copy and messaging, and just general, brand communication. things like that. And I love it because it's
Mhm.
like, yes, listen to your body. And that's like the advice that I would give anybody who feels like they kind of fall into that trap a lot of like,
Yeah.
oh, I wish I could afford this coaching program, or I wish I could afford this product that maybe I don't really need right now. And listen to the way, listen to how, you know, your body and how you feel and how you are reacting, because that cringy type of, you know, manipulative messaging, it's being done intentionally.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're all out here running businesses. We all have, you know, things to share. But the difference is that, you know, the people that I'm working with, we're not pushing it on people. We're offering this
Mhm.
to people who are the right fit
Mhm.
versus shoving something in somebody's face that maybe that's not the right fit for them. Maybe they're not
Just to kind of
at
like
the
close the
time.
sale, or
Say that again.
just to kind of like close the sale, whatever, like by all
Just
means.
to close
Very.
a sale. Whereas like, you know, if you really focus on like, this is the kind of person I want to work with, and I'm not really going to change my parameters around that. That's when selling also gets so much easier, because it doesn't feel like it's being thrown at all these different people
Yeah.
who again may or may not benefit from it anyway if they're not the right fit.
Yeah.
If
Makes
it's not
sense.
in their budget, you know, so really it's a tough trap to fall into. So yeah, just writing
Yeah.
ethical
Get it.
copy that's very sincere and genuine is the way to go.
And another, yeah, it touches on the genuine part where I feel a lot of people struggle with, in the
Mhm.
sense of they make it more complicated than it needs to be, I think. And that's the whole buzz around like authenticity. Bum bum bum. Right? If you're playing bullshit marketing bingo, this is now where you can go like bingo. Um, how do you approach this topic of authenticity? I'm sure it comes up with your clients. Like how
I
can
think
I achieve it, or like what's your approach on that?
I mean, a lot of my clients, if I had a dollar for every time someone said, I want my about page to be super authentic, I want people to feel like they know me when they jump on my about page, I would be a millionaire, because everybody says it. And it's, of course, we want people to know us. And that comes with, you know, just to give you an idea of like my process as a copywriter, I, of
Yeah,
course, just like many others, have a brand questionnaire. It is
yeah,
a bit of a bear, but it's how I help write really great copy for my clients. But a lot of questions in there about their audience, their goals, their experience, their skills, what they bring to the table, why they're different. And I have a whole section too, just like asking them questions about themselves. What do you like to drink in the morning? When you get up, what's the first thing you're doing? Tell me about your routine throughout the day. What can I find you doing on a Saturday night? And it tells me a lot about who they are as a person, so that
mm,
I can incorporate those details and tell their real
yeah.
story. You
So you
know,
there
I
have
think,
like an example of, last time you went clubbing, or the last time you played Scrabble in front of the television in your pajamas.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
because there's somebody who is the very outgoing type, and they're always, you know, they're staying up late, waking up super early for a corporate job, versus somebody who maybe lives a more slow kind of, they want to live very intentionally. It's going to be very different the way that I'm writing for them. But I also always tell my clients that I want to talk about who you are. You know, we obviously, it can't be all about the clients on their websites. We need to still make it about their clients, their audience, who they want to work with, so that there's room for a connection there. But telling their authentic story and being real about where they came from and what they're doing now and how they got here,
Yeah.
it creates space for their clients to be authentic as well, and to feel comfortable knowing that like this is just another human that I'm work. I had a client just say to me, she's like, we're not doing brain surgery out here. And it was the best thing I had heard all week, because she was totally right. It's like, doesn't need to be so intense. It doesn't need to be so stressful. We're just humans
Yeah.
trying to help each other out. I don't want that to sound too like hippy dippy, whatever, but
No, but
it's
it's true, right? I mean, I always like when I do brands, it's always the thing you always have to start with is the person who
Yeah.
owns the brand. And yes, there has to be aspects of it for the potential client. Like otherwise you're not gonna make a single sale. Um, but I feel it has to start with you. Just and because I've seen it like often that people have like this super polished brand or copy, and it's not them. And I'm glad you kind of like ventured out in a bit of the woo territory. But if if you have ChatGPT write for you and it kind of like gives you like the I don't know, something is kind of like off. It feel the same if you hire like a super a super polished copywriter that maybe like from a technical point of view crafts perfect copy, but
Yeah.
you have not, let's say, the energetic capacity to back it up. I feel there's also like this disconnect. Like,
There is, and yes, it's funny you say that because consistency too is very important. And it's full circle. I had a post also recently about, are you
which is
catfishing
funny because I
your
did not read every
audience?
single post you put out. I'm sorry. Otherwise, I could say this is my very good prep process, which is not. But yeah.
But you make a great point though of being consistent and being who you are. And again, I'm not the copywriter for everybody. And I work with, creative service
Yeah,
providers.
I'm
I'm
actually
not
just the
necessarily
person for a very
working.
like very handful of people. So, but it's fine.
Yeah. I'm not working with like people in the manufacturing industry or, medical necessarily. Health and wellness is one thing, but very like corporate, like pharma, medical type things. I'm not doing that because I do want to work with people who just have like, the kind of business where we can show their audience who they are and let them be a little bit more real, which is not always possible when you do have a very corporate brand. That makes total sense. But yeah, consistency is key. And that's why, I never start a project without getting on a discovery call with a person. And then we have a kickoff call once we've decided to work together as well, because I need to know who you actually are. I need to know what you sound like, what your voice is like, how you communicate, some of the words or phrases that you use typically, because that's how we make sure that when people do see your website and they're like, oh my God, I have to work with this girl. And then they book a call with you, they're not shocked by the person who shows up on the Zoom call, because that's also kind of a jarring experience when you're like, I was expecting this
Oh God,
person
yes, yes. I
and
mean,
I'm getting
it's
this, and I'm
expectation
not saying
management
like,
is half the game. Like it's
yeah, we have to, it does need to be true to who you are because you're working with people in real life, whether it's in a physical or a digital capacity, you are communicating with these people and they need to know that they need to feel confident that you are who you say you are. So, um, you know, writing messaging that's really consistent, to who you are and what you value and what you're like as a person is just, it's huge for creating trust.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. And especially also thinking about like the consistency has two ways to look at it, right? One is the consistency across platforms. Like, yes, I mean, or the consistency if I read your copy and then hear you talk and it's like, what? Wait, who is that? Um, but also just the consistency in terms of you putting out content. I mean, you may or may not be on social, like this doesn't hasn't necessarily to do with Instagram, but you have to make some sort of marketing for your business, whatever it is,
mhm.
right? Um, and I find when you just like you have a hard time when it's just empty words, right? I mean, there might be brilliant empty words, but they're not yours.
Yeah,
That it's hard for you, or I've seen it in my clients too, that it's hard for them to keep up, just to keep creating content because it just
because
feels
you're
like
kind
it's
of
not
writing for like a
them.
facade. It feels like
Yeah.
you're writing for someone
Yes.
who is totally different from you. Whereas when
Yes.
I have a friend who we've been friends since college, we chat every single day, and she's always saying to me, whenever she reads my emails or my social posts, she's like, I always hear your voice in my head saying it out loud because she's like, I just know you so well, and
Yes.
this is how you write is exactly how you speak. And I've had clients who,
That's a great
people have
compliment,
said that,
though. I like
well,
that.
thank you. But it's really a testament to, again, like how it creates trust and creates genuine connections when you're showing up as yourself. And to your point too, it does make it easier to create content when you're just like, this is who I am, this is how I'm showing up. So
Mhm.
definitely makes your job easier, I would say.
Yeah, I guess. Absolutely.
Mhm.
So okay, so anyone who's thinking now like, oh, okay, I'm intrigued. I want to work on my copy again, or I'm ready to outsource.
Mhm.
What are Oh no, this is now I'm going into want to know something different. Okay. Um who in like the online space, maybe on
Yeah.
Instagram or wherever, like who are the people in your opinion who do copy really, really well? Like who do you look to for inspiration? Do copywriters look for inspiration? I know designers do, like I do, but
We definitely do. I don't follow a ton of other copywriters, and full
yes,
disclosure,
I
just
me
because,
me neither. Me neither. Like it just no.
yeah, I feel like it kind of, for me, it becomes a little bit of like an echo chamber, and I'm seeing a lot of the same. So I follow a lot of designers and things like that, but um, I just I do a lot of research at the start of every project, and that's like, besides the actual copywriting, that is the most time consuming part for me, because
Mm,
I am looking at this place and that place and this website and this sales page. Because like we discussed before, copywriting really is pulling together little bits and phrases that have been successful and making them into something that is totally new. It's not always having to like reinvent the wheel.
yeah.
I hate using that phrase, but it's appropriate here. It's not always having to like totally start from scratch. It's okay, this really worked in this ad campaign or on this website, and how can I
Yeah.
make that work in a different way that suits my client and this audience. So it's just a ton of research and writing and rewriting. In every copy document, I have like, here's one heading, and then I have a comment with like heading variation 2, heading variation 3, heading variation 4. And I just look at them and I piece them together, and then I take this out, and it's just like a big puzzle of finding what fits and what works for the final result. So
I like that as I've never really considered this approach. I really like this approach of kind of putting the puzzle pieces together.
yeah, it's a lot of like piecing out loud. It's a lot of,
Yeah.
for me personally, reading it to my husband and having him tell me
Oh yeah. Oh
what
yeah. I
sounds
mean,
best
kind of
to
like a
him.
sounding board. I get that.
Yeah.
I'm still want to like tickle it out of you. Who who you're like who you know who always like consistently brings out great copy. Like who you think does a job really, really well. Is there one in particular you can think of?
Trying to think. I really, again, because I just don't follow that many, it's hard for me to pull it
Yeah,
out of my head.
that's fine.
Um, but I see even designers and agencies who I feel like have great copy. Tonic. If I had to name one, I would say actually Tonic. They
On
do
the
show
website,
it.
show it
Yeah,
templates, right? Yeah.
they do show it templates, and I forget. I don't know if they work with a copywriter who is a contractor or they're, a permanent fixture on the team, but I get their newsletters and everything too. And I just like, I love everything in it. I love their templates. I'm a Squarespace girl myself. So I haven't used one of their templates, but
Same.
they're beautiful. And the copy is just like awesome. I actually do have a couple copywriters I've connected with more so on LinkedIn. And a few of them are pretty great as well. But yeah, I really follow a lot of other like designers mainly, creative service providers. So, but yeah, Tonic, I think, has really great stuff.
Well, shout out to Tonic, so. But yeah, I
Yay.
mean, it's really true with the echo chamber. Like, I mean, if on, I don't know, on bad days, it just, I don't know, I get mopey and feel sorry for myself when I have too much of like what everyone else, and I think it's kind of like
Yeah.
diluting what I think and what I want to say and what I want to put out into the world.
I think it's also really hard to not fall into like the comparison trap, which I think
Yes.
is what you were kind of getting at too, of like,
Yes. Too. Yes,
oh God,
absolutely.
I'm not totally there yet, or I'm not this. And it's just, for me, I've learned that like kind of removing a lot of that is very helpful for me to just keep on the track that I need to be on,
Yes.
and make sure that I'm
Keep on coming.
focusing on myself. Yeah. So
That's
that's key.
that's a very good kind of like closing word. Just like focus on yourself, which is it's so true, right? Like we always, I don't know, going back to what we said about the copy has to be about you too, and back to there is no outside solution. Like there, like it, you always carry part of the solution, at least a part of the solution with you. Like there's no outside quick fix or anything. Um, so yeah, those are really beautiful, like closing call kind of words. So you
Yay.
see, you know what I think with words. So there you go. I totally believe the copyrighted thing. So you're not catfishing me. That's
There you
great.
go. I'm not catfishing.
So if people, Naomi, tell me if people want to like read more of your copy or want to work with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website. It's glosshousemedia.com, and that's gloss with one S because it means green. It's an Irish word for green.
I
So you
knew
can find me
that.
on, you knew that. Oh, you can find me on Glasshouse Media. I write a lot on my blog there. I am on Instagram, sometimes sporadically, trying to make that more consistent, as we talked about. But you can follow along with me there. And yeah,
And we're also going to link something you bringing with you today. 10 ways to make more money with your website. Do you want to quickly tell me something
yes.
about it?
Sure. It's a super quick guide for people who just want to figure out how to make more money with your website, how to maximize your um website's kind of like money
Yeah.
making potential. And it's a very quick guide. You can go through it in 5 to 10 minutes, probably even less than that. Just 10 quick tips with what you can look for on your own site to figure out maybe if there's something holding you back from getting more of the right conversions that you want to get. There's a little bit about SEO in there,
Hmm.
about user experience, some copy tips as well, but just some things to look out for to give you a quick and easy way to start optimizing your website.
Mm,
So
that
easy
sounds
peasy
great.
stuff.
We're always for the easy peasy stuff. I make stuff unnecessarily hard.
I agree.
Ah, dear. So, last question before I let you off the hook. What book
Sure.
are you currently reading or what audiobook are you currently listening to?
Oh, okay. So I'm a big podcast girl, actually. So
Fair
I
enough.
am always listening to podcasts like Giggly Squad. I need something that's fun and makes me laugh. I was
Yeah.
listening to a Gilmore Girls podcast. I was listening to a podcast about Girls, the HBO show. So
Oh,
I,
I remember that one. Yeah.
yeah, I
No
think
one
it's
has
just
talked
called
about
like
that one in a
Girls
while.
Rewatch. It,
Oh,
they like go through each episode. I don't know if anybody has a girls fan, but I love that show. I know they're all very toxic and awful, but it's a very good show nonetheless. So
I have
I
never
love stuff like
rewatched it.
that.
I've watched it when it first aired, but I haven't rewatched it. And it's curious how it sits now. Because I mean, if you rewatch Sex and the City now, parts of it are like, no,
Yeah. Which
why
they talk
whatever
about that too, about how these shows kind of fit into how we,
now?
operate and the values that we all have today. So it's very interesting.
Oh,
As
okay. Yeah, I'm trying to find that. Otherwise, you have to send me the link because I want to
I'll
listen to
send it
that
to
too.
you.
I'm like, maybe I should rewatch Girls. Okay. Now I
It's a good
know
one.
what I'm gonna do the rest of my evening. Damn.
I
Okay.
think as to answer your other question, to answer what I'm reading, there's a book, it's only my second time reading it, but it's called I think it's The Unraveling or maybe just Unraveling, by Elizabeth Graber. And it's actually a copy that my mom gave to me for Christmas one year when I was in school. I think I was in Ireland that Christmas, so I took it back with me. And it's a very like beautiful story. It's like happy cry, sad cry, happy cry. So it's
Oh,
like
that
a
yeah,
little bit
that's needed.
emotional, but it's the writing is just amazing. So I needed to
Oh,
read it a second time. So yeah.
okay. I love
It's
how
a good
you
one.
said I've on like almost kind of like unapologetically. I'm like, oh, only the second time I'm reading it. I'm like, girl, how many times are you rereading books?
I used to read The Great Gatsby every summer. I don't know what's wrong with me. I've read The Glass Castle about 15 times. I have like
Okay,
I'm a
wow.
weird comfort rereader, rewatcher. I watch the
See,
same shows over and over. So
which shows I do have that too. Like
yeah.
it's a comfort thing, right? Because when you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of like and now I feel bad because I've never read The Glass Castle once.
Oh,
So I'm
it's a good one. It's a really, really tough. It's tough in some parts, but it's very rewarding, I will say.
okay. So that's okay. So I'll link. Okay, we're gonna link that in the show notes too because it's all going up on the Scenic Route kind of like book recommendation. So whenever
Love it.
you finished rereading The Glass Castle for the 16th time, you can go there and find something else.
Perfect.
We have also fiction and nonfiction. We do both.
Love that. I'm gonna use that.
So Naomi, thank you so much for being on the Scenic Route with me. It
Thank
was
you for having me. This was so fun.